I usually go to the gym in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like having a bad day at work, I go to the gym, and as much as it might be a really tough workout, you know, or like after you finish your workout, you're just exhausted, you know, and you're like, oh, I can't go anymore, like, you know. But usually what I find is once I pick up my stuff and I start walking to my car, that's when I start feeling really good. I'm like, I'm glad I came today. Now I have my mind is reset. Like I feel so good. And I think that's like the main thing, like it is more of, it's not just physical, it's not just, you know, getting all those PBs. It's also for me is the mindset, and it resets it and it makes it feel so much better.
Hello, and welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Dr. Julie Fouché, family physician and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring you information and inspiration to help bridge the gap between fitness and medicine and support your journey toward your healthiest self. This episode is one of a series of Pursuing Health stories, where I feature the inspiring stories of regular, everyday people who've used lifestyle to overcome some incredible health challenges. And in this week's episode, I got to share a conversation with Tarryn Harvey. Tarryn shares how an unexpected heartbreak in her early 20s left her struggling with depression, anxiety, and the early stages of anorexia. Eventually, it was a friend who connected Tarryn with a personal trainer, who then eventually introduced her to CrossFit. And lifting weights meant she started eating to fuel her workouts, and soon Tarryn began to feel empowered and strong. Her depression started to fade, she reconnected with friends, and she discovered the power of meditation and positive self-talk. Like so many of the individuals I featured on this podcast, Tarryn credits CrossFit with saving her life, which is just amazing. She says that not only does it help her remain physically healthy, but she can count on the community and the workouts to help her mentally reset on those challenging days too. Before we dive into the conversation, I do want to make it clear that this podcast is for general information only and does not provide medical advice. I recommend that you seek assistance from your personal physician for any health conditions or concerns. And with that, let's get to the episode. All right, welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm really excited to be here today with Tarryn Harvey, who is calling all the way from Australia. So thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story with us.
Hi, so good to see you.
Well, I really want to dive in. Before we started recording, we were just chatting about this physical, mental, spiritual growth in the process, and I'm excited to dive in. But just to give some context, could you first share just about your background growing up, sort of where you grew up, what your childhood was like, and any athletic pursuits as a young kid?
Yeah, so I've always lived in Australia my whole life, particularly still in the area where I live as well. So for me, growing up, I had I would say quite a lovely childhood. Like my family, really good, always been really supportive of the things that my sister and I have always wanted to do. So in relation to sport, my sister and I did dance when we were young. So probably from like the age of about 5 for about 8 years or so. But I think I've said to my mum, I saw these kids one afternoon after school, and they were a part of our little athletics group, which I guess starts you off there. And if you do become more elite, that's a pathway to go to like the Olympics, let's say.
Wow.
In track and field, particularly. Through school, I was still able to do the track and field in my own school, and that's where, you know, went on to districts and regionals, and never got the way to nationals, of course, but just being able to represent like the school in everything that, you know, I like to do. Like I like the sprinting, like 100-meter sprints. And then later on, I found I quite liked the long distance. So that was also pretty cool because we were still able to do that in school for like, they called it cross country here in Australia. So that you got to do that plus on your sports day, it was all track and field stuff. So I liked high jump, long jump, things like that.
Awesome. So obviously we're very active growing up, had a lot of different opportunities to do that, which then later probably came into play when you started CrossFit later on.
Yeah, definitely.
So I know a lot of your story. You talk about going through a really devastating breakup in your early 20s and finding yourself facing a lot of mental health conditions, depression, anxiety, anorexia. Can you just talk about sort of what your life was like, and then what that time period, how that changed your experience?
Yeah, so with that, obviously quite a dark time for a young person, and you probably because growing up, like, there wasn't really things that were really talked about, particularly in my family, about like depression and anxiety and things like that. It was probably just due to limited knowledge. Just didn't really know much about it. It probably actually wasn't until around the time when the breakup happened. I was actually working in one of our police forces that we have here in Australia, and I actually worked in the psychological unit, which to me was a massive eye-opener for me. And my manager at the time, he was our head psychologist, and I feel like I got a lot of my mental health learning from him, because I'd never experienced anything like that. It was almost like your body's going into shock, because it's like, what's happening to me? Used to be this really happy person, and you just go dark, and it starts becoming really quite difficult. So for me back then, I had already started going, like, from when I finished school, I started going to my local gym and started learning going to all the classes there and learning all the machines and things like that, which also is probably a bit daunting for some people, walking into a gym, the everyday gym there. And that was where I met my coach, who is still my coach to this day, 7 years later. So around that time when the breakup happened, I started taking personal training sessions with my coach and my best friend. And he had quite a bit of knowledge as well about mental health. And I guess around then was when my best friend did say to me, she was actually the first person to actually say something to me about how much weight I'd lost. And I will say it was a self-diagnosis, because I don't think, well, it's hard to say. I'm not a doctor, and I didn't go to a doctor about the eating disorder or anything like that. But like she said to me, "Oh, Tarryn, it looks like, you're actually losing quite a bit of weight. Like, are you okay?" And this was obviously when the breakup kind of first happened anyway. But she's like, "I've noticed a couple of things." And she pointed out some of the, I guess, anxiety and depression and things like that. And that actually put everything a bit more in perspective, and was able to accept what was actually going on. So from there,
I think I just want to call out a couple of things that, to me, that really stand out. One being just what a gift your friend gave you by calling that out and talking to you about it, because I think that's not easy to do. And I don't know what your initial reaction was when she first talked to you about it, but that can be hard as a friend when you see somebody going through something and you want to help them, but not sure how they're going to react or how they're going to respond. So what was your reaction when she wanted to talk to you about this stuff?
I believe I got really upset. I do remember getting quite upset about it, because being, I guess, coming from like my sporting background and always being quite a fit person, it was weird, because I guess for me, most of the time when people majority of the time, I shouldn't say that, majority of the time people are probably more trying to lose weight, not gain weight as well. So for me, when that happened, I guess I was like, oh my gosh, like, what's actually going on here? And I do believe from memory, it was some time ago, but I was quite upset about it. But I wasn't upset with her that she pointed it out, but just upset that this was actually happening to me, because I think some people think that probably wouldn't go through things like that in your life. So it was really difficult, I guess, to swallow. But for me, I guess with that, that was when I was like, okay, well, what can we do about this? Like, and started that journey.
Very interesting that you talk about then finding the PT and starting to work on PT, because in some ways it seems counterintuitive for somebody who's losing a lot of weight to think about adding in more exercise. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it ended up being extremely helpful for you. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. So my coach, he said, don't stop going to the gym, but I'll show you a different way of what we can do to help you here. because back then, coming from like a running background, I loved running and a lot of cardio. He was like, oh, we're probably going to stop the cardio for a little while because I need you to start gaining the weight. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, what's this going to mean? And this is where weightlifting came into it. Never done weights in my life, like never done anything like that. So for me, it was, really interesting because I had like, my best friend with me who did my PT session with me, and she's doing the classes with my coach on the side when we weren't having PTs and there was a lot of cardio and they were doing all the fun things. And here I was over in like the weights room, like you give me the program, I go and do my program on my own. Well, I wasn't with him, and wasn't having a great time for some time. And then because my diet changed as well, so I was eating like 6 times a day, a lot of high carb meals, and also like having a lot of high carb protein shakes. And the particular protein shake that I had was like a mass gainer, so it was more for people, that were like doing like bodybuilding and things like that. And I was like, this is like crazy. So yes, there was a lot of that happening. But
how did you sort of mentally incorporate that, like knowing that you needed to eat more food in order to gain weight, and accepting that as your PT or your trainer is giving you, wanting you to do more strength workouts, not wanting to do the aerobic things that you enjoy most, and then asking you to eat more calories? How did you sort of adjust to that in your mental approach?
Yeah, so it was quite difficult initially because I guess when I realized like I was losing the weight and stuff and I wasn't eating as much, I think a lot of that also was due to like my higher metabolism, and I think the anxiety was taking over, so I wasn't consuming the food or storing it. It was just going straight away. So when I had to start eating like these different meals and everything, it was really difficult because it was like, because I'd have like a timer like on my phone, and because it would tell me when I'd have to eat again, and it's like I just ate, like I don't want to eat anymore, like it was difficult. But I guess for me still, even though I was in a dark place, I still had that I don't know, ethic as well, like of eating, to be like, no, you have to do this. I'm going to push through.
So you went through this initial period with your trainer, and were able to start getting a little bit healthier. And then eventually you found CrossFit and you started going to a CrossFit gym. Can you talk about that experience? What your first time in CrossFit was like?
Yeah, so this was really interesting because this probably also played a little bit on the mental health too, because I guess with the time periods of all of this, so from probably like identifying the eating disorder and then getting like eating more and getting like a bit healthier, it was probably about 6 months there that I had the personal training sessions with my coach and my best friend. And by then things started feeling a lot better, and I was feeling more joy and everything. And then my coach said to me one day at the gym, he said, I'll be leaving this gym and taking on another opportunity at another gym. But he's like, I would like you to join me. I think you would really like this. Because towards the end of our training before he left this gym, he was teaching us little CrossFit movements, I guess. So like a front squat. I've never done a front squat in my life. I thought it was the most alien thing ever to have this thing up like, in front rack. And we're doing like back squats and stuff like that. I love the back squats because I felt like as much as I didn't have much strength in upper body, my legs and my glutes were quite strong. So that was really enjoyable. And but when he was showing us this stuff, I didn't know anything about CrossFit at this point. I didn't even know it even existed. And this was 2014 when all this happened.
Okay.
So then he approached us and said, yep, I'm taking on this other job. He's like, I would really like you to join me. So my best friend had gone with him. And I did go to one of their open days at our local CrossFit gym when he started working. And my first ever workout was Fran. but with dumbbells. So there's no barbells, dumbbells, and obviously I couldn't do a pull-up at the time. So we just did like ring rows. So I did that with a couple of other people there that came to the open day, and Greg said to me afterwards, like, "Oh, what did you think of that?" And I was like, "I hate this. What is
awful.
this? That was terrible." I was like, what are you doing to me? Why'd you pull me into this?" And anyway, and he said, "Tarryn, there's not all workouts are like that. There will be some that you're going to absolutely love." Like, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know about this." So I went away for 2 weeks. Most people don't; they just stay. I went away. It was about 2 weeks, and I continued to go to the other gym, and he'd assign another PT to me. And then my best friend was telling me nearly every day, because she joined up.
She couldn't stop talking about it.
Yeah. And she kept, telling me, she was like, "Oh, we did all this." And she's like, "Tarryn, we did all this running." Because at this point I was allowed to do cardio again. So she was like, you can do this running stuff, but then you've got to lift like this barbell like during it, and then you run again, and then you come back. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" So anyway, so I went back. And it did take probably about a week or so to kind of, I guess, get into it, to be like, okay, this isn't so bad. But for me, it was quite confronting initially, like walking in there as well, because, there was a lot of other obviously really fit people at my gym, and they'd been there for a long time. And so it was, really interesting walking into that.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was your friend being very persistent and telling you about it that eventually got you to come back. And then how did you overcome that intimidation factor when you came back? You said, obviously, just being around people who are very fit or seemed like they knew what they were doing in the gym, it can be hard to adjust at first.
Yeah, well, I think for me, being quite lucky with my gym, it's a very family orientated gym as well. So you'd have the mum and dads and the kids, and like couples, and a lot of friends that go there. So for me, I've been very fortunate, because my gym, it's not like a cliquey gym. It's quite very inclusive, very diverse, very, people just very encouraging there, very motivating. And so for me with that, as much as it was a bit difficult or maybe frustrating as well, coming from like a sporting background where, all I wanted to do was go, like, I'm like, I want to do this. I want to, and it was, I guess, in myself, the only competition that I have is with me. I'm trying to beat Tarryn from yesterday. I'm not trying to beat anyone else in the gym. That's not my thing. But it was quite difficult initially. And then, also seeing like our CrossFit Games athletes, I started like YouTubing them and following them on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. And even that was like a little bit intimidating too, not because I knew them and stuff, being like, "Oh my God, there's people out there that are like this. Like they're so amazing." Yeah. So, but back then, I guess it was a little bit difficult for me to approach that. But the biggest thing to overcome was just being able to just be there, coming consistently, trying to come every day. And that made everything a bit easier for me, but also having the support from my coach and my best friend, and then actually making all these other friendships with all these wonderful people there as well, because they're just so encouraging. It still are to this day. So
that's amazing. You wrote that CrossFit has saved your life in many different ways. Can you expand on that? What different ways it has helped you, and overcoming some of the anxiety, depression, or anorexia, or in any other way?
Yeah, so like CrossFit to me, like, is more than just turning up and hitting a PR. Like, to me, it's more about my like mental health as well. So if I'm having let's say I have a bad day at work or something, because I usually go to the gym in the afternoon, and I'm like having a bad day at work, I go to the gym, and as much as it might be a really tough workout, or like after you finish your workout, you're just exhausted, and you're like, "Oh, I can't go anymore," but usually what I find is once I pick up my stuff and I start walking to my car, that's when I start feeling really good. I'm like, I'm glad I came today. Now I have my mind is reset. Like, I feel so good. And I think that's like the main thing, like, is it is more of, it's not just physical, it's not just, you know, getting all those PBs. It's also, for me, is the mindset, and it resets it and it makes it feel so much better. So I guess that's one of my reasons is CrossFit is it is my meditation. It is my, even though I do meditation as well, but it's one of my, you know, big things, like where
it's
people
a great form of meditation. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, because you can still be mindful, you know, like every lift that you take and your feet touching the floor and, you know, getting into that position of, you know, something that you're doing, like that's still being mindful. And you're also taking time out for yourself. Like, to me, that's self-care. So that's also like another part for me.
Absolutely. And it helps me to get out of my head too. I think when you're pushing hard in a workout, you can't be thinking about 15 other different things at the same time. You're really just focused on doing one rep at a time and kind of getting out of the ways that we always get stuck in our heads.
Yeah, that's right.
My best ideas have come, or greatest epiphanies have come in the middle of CrossFit workouts.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So something just clicks, like let's just say you weren't great at double unders, and it's something after a while, it just clicks and you get them and you're like, oh my gosh, like I've been working on this forever and it's finally like clicked and it's worked. And, you know, like that's really good. But I think, it's also probably also finding something as well to be a part of is also part of like what I was saying, how CrossFit saved my life. Like, it's being a part of something, being a part of a community, and having people around, like-minded people around you, is so motivating. Like, being around those people that are so motivating for you, like-minded people that just want to do what you want to do, and just it's so uplifting to be around that type of environment. So,
absolutely, I completely agree. How has CrossFit changed your own perspective about your own body or your body image?
Yeah, so I think for me, like when I put on all the weight, because I think from memory, it's probably about 14 kilos all up that I've put on since 2014. And I think for me, having even the change in my body was a little bit different. So, like I've noticed, like even in around my stomach area, it's probably like it's widened a little bit. And I first started noticing it like in the physical change. I said that to my coach, and he's like, I think most of that's from overhead movements. You know, like it's not just this little like bottle that like sticks up. You know, like it's actually widened your stomach and like upper like abs, I guess, from the overhead movement of that part. So I think being able to just accept, you know, that your body would change a little bit with movements that you do, and doing CrossFit so consistently as well. And depending how far you want to take it too, like if you were someone that was super strict with their diet and what they're eating and drinking and all that kind of stuff, and if they do extra work outside CrossFit or they do lots of competitions, things like that, like their bodies start to change. So I think for me, like I accepted all of that, like to know that, my quads will be a bit bigger, my shoulders will be slightly a little bit bigger, like I might not be able to fit into the dresses I used to, like, but it's okay because I'm fit and healthy. And, you know, I think it's okay to have like those kinds of feelings and, you know.
Absolutely. You're strong and your body can do so many more things now than it could before when it wasn't so strong. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about some of the other tools that you've used just along your process of self-discovery in addition to CrossFit that have really helped you to grow and sort of become, like you said before, you were in this dark place, but you came out as finding your true self. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this might be a little bit more spiritual. So for me, like my mum's always kind of been interested in like or like seeing like a medium or a tarot reader or somebody like that. And I think that's where it kind of started. And I saw someone at it, I think I might have been about 18 at the time, and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. But finding a lot of more things that are more that align with that, and you're like, oh wow, okay, there's all these other different things. So like meditation for me was a big thing that I started doing just after high school. Like even just we call it over here, it's called Headspace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the app.
Yeah, the app.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. So you could just listen to something for like 5 minutes and just lie there with your headphones in, and with the deep breathing and things like that. I have also been doing EFT tapping for the past 2.5 years, which I find has been a massive improvement in my mindset as well. It's a lot more positive. Being able to tap those positive affirmations into your body and repeating it out loud, does really make a big difference. But also being able to say to yourself, like, as well, like, I love, accept, and forgive myself. Like, it is hard sometimes because it is hard to say those types of things to yourself if you are in those dark places. But I found when back in 2014, like, I did receive help from a psychologist, and I went to counseling sessions and things like that, which really did help me. But then they gave me these other tools that were like, oh, have a go, like, at meditation, or you can start writing down, like, positive things, or desires and things like that. So I do a lot of journaling now. It's part of my morning practice that I do. So I have my journal out, and I'll just write down for the day, like, 5 things that I'm grateful for. Whether that might be my partner, my fur babies, my house, my job, CrossFit, like, things like that, and expanding out on them. Like, like last week, might have hit like a PR, let's say, at the gym, and being like, I worked so hard for that. I'm so proud of myself. Like, I'm really grateful that I can have those opportunities to be able to go to a gym and to be able to achieve that. So I think with a lot of gratitude and journaling and tapping and all that type of thing, I think that that's also another part I think that does really help for me. And even just having a routine too, that's able to maybe keep you a bit more on track. Like, during COVID, when I was working from home a lot, like, I tried to keep to a routine before I started my work day. So I'd have my coffee and try to be mindful having my coffee, and I might light a candle or light some incense, and might pull out a card for the day, a positive affirmation card, and do my journaling. And if I did have time to do my tapping. So those types of things really did help, which I continue to do to this day.
I love it. So many amazing tools. And I think I found a lot of similar tools I've been using in my own life, especially in the last year. I think the journaling, the meditation, the positive affirmations. And I've heard of tapping from a few different sources. Is there a place that you recommend if people listening want to learn more about it, or how you would learn or try?
Yeah, so there is a lady that I do follow. I've actually been doing some of her courses for the past couple of years. Her name is Gala Darling. She's a New Zealand lady that now lives in the US, and she has this incredible platform that really is about manifestation and tapping, and a lot of like, I guess, like, other workshops about manifesting, like, money and a good life and things like that. So she, to me, is, I guess, like, my mentor, even though I've never met her, but like another mentor that I have, because her tools are really great, and she is reasonably priced as well. So she's someone that I would always recommend. And I find sometimes if you want to, like, listen to somebody that has, like, really good things to say, not just about CrossFit but mental health, like, and you'd probably know him, Bergeron, like, his podcast is also quite great, a lot like yours. So,
Absolutely.
it's, just listening to people like that, or a big CrossFit person, like, you just want to put on, like, another CrossFit, like, YouTube, like, I like listening to Tia Toomey, like, people like that. So
yeah, I love both of them. And I think that's one of the other great things about our community is we have so many people who have just that positive outlook. And I think the community attracts that. And then we bring it out in each other because people are generally positive and uplifting and looking on the bright side of things, and just how important that is for your environment and our own thoughts and our own mental health.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. Well, I want to start wrapping up with 3 questions I ask everyone on the podcast. So the first one is, what are the 3 things that you do now on a regular basis that have the biggest positive impact on your health?
So I would say like CrossFit obviously being probably the first one. And being consistent with that too, because I do find when you kind of fall off the wagon, or you've only started going like 2 days a week for a while, like that does make it a little bit harder on you, and you might put a bit of pressure on yourself to be like, why aren't I going, lacking motivation, things like that. But I find once you pick that up, like it's a really good way to be more consistent, holding yourself accountable. Probably the second thing is, I think, always connecting with other humans, like always being open, saying like what you mean, asking for help if you need to, because I do think from my experience that was probably the biggest thing, is that you're not alone. You can always ask for help. Like there are people there, even if you don't want to see like a professional, like there are other people around you that you would be able to lean on for like that type of advice. And probably the third thing, I would say just also trying to eat and drink healthy as well. I think that has definitely changed me as well, because I think if you start in like that rut of not eating properly, I think that does bring you down mentally as well, because then you might think, oh, I'm starting to put on weight or things like that, and it does really get you down. So I think trying to maintain that healthy eating and drinking is a big part as well.
Absolutely. I think everything that we consume, whether it's food, whether it's exercise, whether it's the thoughts we have, the people that we're around, it all impacts sort of our total health. So I love that. Is there one thing that you're working on that you think would have a big impact on your health, but you maybe struggle to implement it?
I do think that possibly being like, I think being consistent with eating, I think is still sometimes a challenge for me. So being able to still maintain eating well, but I think, yeah, like I always try to implement that. But I think I still struggle with it sometimes, because yeah, it's one of those things that I think is difficult.
There's constant temptations, right? We're constantly surrounded by all kinds of foods that maybe are not as nourishing as others. And there's a balance, right, between enjoying life and enjoying those social situations, enjoying our food, and also giving ourselves what we need. So
yeah.
What does a healthy life look like to you, Tarryn?
Healthy life for me is, I think, having having a good mindset, having good people around you, because I think that is the biggest thing on us, is the influence sometimes of others. Like, so having the like-minded people around you, and having the support behind you as well, and also supporting others when they need it. But I think, yeah, it's being fit and healthy, in whatever capacity you can. Like, if some people, think that, like you and I love CrossFit, but if some people think that could be a little bit too much for them, even just moving, going for a walk, taking a dog for a walk, like just getting out there and just moving, I think is really positive, because it's better than just sitting down where your muscles aren't moving and they get all like tensed up, and and that could create even like stress and things behind that too. So I think a healthy life is, moving and eating well and having really good connection with other people around you, and with the support of them.
I love it. That's beautiful. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being so open about it. And I think it's this common theme that we see over and over again. I was just thinking, it reminded me of, Katrín Davíðsdóttir's rope climbs, and how that devastating moment for her and her CrossFit career ended up being the very best thing that could have happened. And I think we see that over and over again in athletes and in sport, but it's this great metaphor for all of us in life. When we go through the really big challenges, like you said, being in this really dark place, it ended up allowing you to learn all of these things about yourself and gather all of these tools that now are allowing you to be healthier and happier than ever. And it's exciting when CrossFit is one of those tools, because I see it for so many people, where it really does provide those relationships, the support in terms of the exercise, the nutrition, the community. And it's really amazing to see the impact that it's had on your life and so many other people's lives.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like going like from your Katrín example, like I even remember just even with the games recently, like we were watching at home and anyway, and we had a friend and he was like messaging my partner and saying, oh, Tarryn's not going to like what's about to happen next. And I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, don't tell me that Tia's going to hurt herself. Like, I was like getting so upset. I was like, what's going on? And then I'm a massive fan of Brooke Wells. And this was when Brooke had dislocated her elbow.
Oh, yeah.
And I really felt like I was tearing up. And I said to my partner, I was like, no, she's worked so hard and she's changed her programming. She's now at Proven. Like, anyway, and I think having that, like, even just that feeling for someone else. I don't even know Brooke. Yeah, like I absolutely, she inspires me and I really, really look up to her. But just having that feeling of being like you care for somebody else and seeing all that they've achieved and they've got there, they're at the games and they're like, they could be possibly on the podium. You're like, how hard these CrossFitters work. Hardest people I know, working. So I think, it's crazy when you have that feeling of being like, oh no, just for them. And I think that shows your love for the sport and how much you respect these people and their level and their eliteness. Like, it's incredible.
Absolutely. And just how much, all of us can relate on some level, because we're going to the gym and we're doing these workouts every day and we know what it's like to be fighting through a workout or achieve a new goal. And it's all, we're all in some way going through the same sort of shared experience. So that's really
cool. That's right.
Hopefully for Brooke, it will also be one of those events that she looks back on and says, wow, that made me stronger. It helped me learn in some way. And as hard as it is to watch her go through it, I think we all love a good redemption story too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. She comes back next year fighting, like that'll be really awesome to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for the time, Tarryn. This was great.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you or someone you know has a story to share on a future episode of Pursuing Health, please write me at info@pursuing-health.com. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, please also consider subscribing and giving it a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really does help to get the word out to more people.